we're recording now. Um, and then two, if someone has two or more cards, they are allowed to shop one at a time. So they need to go through the market one time per card and not all at once. And then we also need to double check the proxies, which we'll go in depth more later. I also want to make sure that we are closing just past the time that we list our closing. Sometimes people will come in at 11 o'clock, and if they do come in at 11 or 2:30, we do want to go ahead and help them. And we want to make sure that we are looking at internet-based clocks, so your phone, smartphone, or the tablet. The clock on the wall is usually 2 minutes fast, and we reset it often, but it still goes a little fast. So we want to make sure that we're looking at internet-based phones when determining closing time. When we have a new family, we want to ask if they have the Food Bank of the Rockies card, and we want to make sure that we're showing them the example. This is just below the tablet on the desk. And then if they are new, we always want to give them the option between doing the online registration or the paper. So the QR code, the online registration, it's usually on the desk. This is just a lot faster for the navigators. It isn't the most user-friendly for the person putting it in, but if they're able to get through this, we really appreciate it because that just makes things go a little bit faster for the navigator. But if not, we do always have the paper. We just want to make sure that we're offering one or the other. And then we also have a cheat sheet on the wall behind the tablet that reviews common issues and procedures. Do we have any questions on just the housekeeping stuff before I start going into link to feed?
What's the significance of the FBR card? Does it?
So that's the card that you are
uh,
scanning. So we have the example card right below the tablet that you can show people to be like, oh, by the way, do you have this card? Because some people, even if they haven't been to IFCS, they have been to other food pantries, and other food pantries might have given them this card. And it's the
Okay.
whole same system.
But if they don't, or they do or don't have the card, what significance does it have? I guess is what I'm.
Yeah, so if they don't have the card and they're new to going to food pantries, we'll just get them registered,
Okay.
either on that online registration or the paper.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So I'm just gonna go into link to feed. So this is not quite what you see on the tablet, but it's pretty similar. I went ahead and actually added information to that example card so that I can do trainings a little bit easier. So when you're scanning the card, have to make sure it's in the right field first. You scan the card and you'll see these two check marks pop up. You always want to make sure that these two check marks pop up because that's how you know that everything went well. The check marks are associated with this pantry and the TFAP visit, which is on. And then if it's really, really easy to accidentally click these other options or to unclick the TFAP or pantry. So we always want to make sure there's two check marks. And if there's not, come grab someone to help you out. And I think that's all with that. So just make sure that it's either two check marks, not three, not one, two check marks. And then when a card doesn't scan, a lot of times it will have spaces within the numbers. So it'll look something like this. Where it has like a couple spaces in there. That often means that the scanner itself needs to be cleaned off. But if it's not scanning and all the numbers are correct in here, oftentimes it usually means that the card isn't associated to the account correctly. And if that's the case, we need to send them over to a navigator. But before we send them over to a navigator, we want to double check that that is the issue. So we like to refresh. So on the tablet, you're able to pull the screen all the way down to refresh, and that refreshes it a little bit easier than just hitting dashboard. Dashboard doesn't fully reset it for some reason. So pulling it all the way down to reset it to make sure it's not a tablet issue. or like an internet issue. And then also like making sure that the barcode is clean. If the barcode's not clean, it might not scan. And then we also want to make sure that the name that pops up in those check marks is the name that you are matching to the ID. If the name does not match, we want to go into their account to double check that they have a proxy listed or that they have a household member with that name. So you'll scroll down a little bit, and all of the names down here are a link to their account. So you can easily just click that, and then you can see if they have a proxy listed. So if they have the proxy's name is the one that needs to match the account. So just as a reminder, the proxy is a person who is registered with IFCS to shop on behalf of one of our participants. And they do have to get registered in advance, and the navigators will put in the note at an alert, just letting the volunteers know that we do have a proxy for that person. And then if they do not have a proxy listed, we can go into this very first tab where it says personal. And we'll scroll all the way to the bottom and see if they have a household member, if that person who shows you the ID, if they have a household member with that name. Any of those cases, they're allowed to shop, no problem. If they are either the person on the account, on the household list, or listed as a proxy are the three ways that people can shop. And then we did have to implement a new rule. So previously, we would give them a little bit of leeway to get that proxy form completed and still let them shop. Now, if they don't have a proxy form completed, we're gonna have to have them come back next time. But Miriam did make it really easy for people to get that a lot easier than it was before to get for people to get that proxy done. So I'm gonna let Miriam talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when test is completed, what that means is that we need the signature of the participant's account and date, and then also the person they're assigning to be proxy to sign and date. And oftentimes when people come back to return the form, it's not fully completed. So we started making people can still get the forms in paper at the market, but also we can send the papers digitally, which even includes sending it through a text message. And the form is very simple for them to just type in their name and sign for that. This is just for background information. None of you have to worry about this. This is all the resource navigators. For you all, the main thing we want you to make sure is that the proxy name that pops up here matches the ID, or just see if that person is a household member. If there would be a situation that, let's say, for example, says, I have this Food Bank of the Rockies card and I'm shopping for my sister, and you scroll down in the household members and you don't see their name, and they ask you, I live with them, can you add my name to there? The answer would be no. The person that has the main account must come in and make those changes themselves. We cannot do that on their behalf. Same if it's like I can call my sister right now on the phone and she can verify that it's me. Unfortunately, we cannot do that. That's also another rule that we have for other applications, that if someone on the phone says, can you fill out the application on my behalf? We can't do that. The person needs to come in and make those changes. But again, most of that information will be the resource navigators guiding them on how to make sure it's fully completed.
And then okay, I think you actually answered my question. Oh, profile review. So what happens if there's a proxy and a profile review?
Same, the person who has the main account needs to do the profile. We can also email, let's say the person is homebound and cannot come in to make that profile. We have a digital version of that as well, so we can send them that copy. But again, that primary person must make those updates before they can shop.
Do we have
Okay.
any questions about proxies?
Yeah, is there ever a case where there's more than one proxy?
There can be up to two proxies, and the Resource Navigator needs to make sure that they're both updated information and that both of those names show up on the form.
Any other questions about proxies? Karen, I see you talking, but I think you're muted. Not sure if she's trying to type or not. Um,
Can you unmute her microphone, Tara?
All right, can you hear me now?
yeah, you are.
I was not responding to my finger. Um, anyway, I have a question. When you're talking ID does not match, you're talking a driver's license or an ID, you're not talking the card itself.
Yes, the ID, like their driver's license or passport or
Okay,
national
so the
ID.
question is still, a lot of people still claim no ID when they come in, and my understanding is we just say, okay, bring it next time or whatever, but we're just going to continue to do that then?
So that's a
Yeah.
little bit, sorry, that's a little bit different from proxies. With the proxy, we are going to require an ID to match because it's on behalf of the person. The times when the person shows up with the proxy and then being ID. The idea behind the ID is that we want to make sure people are not using someone else's, but we also understand people don't have IDs because of many circumstances, and we don't want that to be a barrier for them to have food that day. So as much as possible, still insist the person has an ID. I think with the proxy, that one will have to continue to be pretty strict because again, if it doesn't match, we have to make sure that they are representing their household. It's always like a gray area of how strict are we with IDs. Um, but we really just want to make sure people are not scared to come to get food because they don't have an ID. So an ID really is like super general. If it's a school ID, as long as something has a picture and their name, for us, that's an ID.
And then we also want to make sure that we are checking that account name on instead of the card, because sometimes the card will have a different name on it for some
Mhm.
reason. So
Yeah.
we always want to make sure that their ID is matching what's on the profile.
Yeah, and there's other times where I ask to verify other information like address, phone number. So let's say a proxy does come up, um, they don't have their ID for whatever reason, or someone else, you can send them to the navigator. Navigator can ask them other verifying questions like date of birth, what's your phone number? That's other ways we can verify that it's that person.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, I'm going to go on to the next piece, which is the once a month versus TFAP error. So I sent out that survey in advance, and a lot of people said that they had questions on both proxies and then the TFAP versus the once a month errors. So I just wanted to go over that. So on that quick click, you are recording the pantry and the TFAP visit, and these kind of correspond to these buttons right here. So the TFAP is recording whether or not they have visited a food pantry in the same day. So if they go up to community ministry, which is like 10 minutes from us, and then come over here to IFCS and get food, technically they are not supposed to receive TFAP food, that government food, more than once in a day. So if they went up to community ministry and then came to IFCS, technically they're not supposed to get TFAP food. So when that happens, it we usually will have like a little red pop-up that's like this person's already been here this day. That little red pop-up, that's gibberish, doesn't really mean what it means. Usually it's referring to either an error with one of these two boxes. So you just want to check these boxes to see if one of them is ineligible. When the TFAP is ineligible, you want to go ahead and send it over to a navigator, and the navigator will just have a conversation with them, let them know that they are only supposed to receive TFAP once in a day. So if they went up to another food pantry and came here, technically you're not supposed to get government food twice in the same day. They can either choose to shop the same day and not receive the government food, which has the green labels on it, or they can come back literally the next day and get all of the food that we have available. So if they decide to shop that day, we do have the little shaped cards that say no TFAP on to let the volunteer know that. And then otherwise, most of the time they do decide to just come back another day. They would rather just come back the next day and get all food available versus only getting maybe half of what we have. So it's not super rare that the shopping volunteers have to deal with that, but the tablet volunteers will see it a little bit more. So I want to go over that. And then the next thing is that the new pantry, that is recording whether someone has visited IFCS in the calendar month. So whether or not they have been here in the month of June versus the TFAP is recording if they've received TFAP in the same day. So let me change some of these settings so it will show you what it will look like. And I don't expect y'all to know how to do this. So when someone has already visited IFCS in the same month, this new TFAP will say eligible. That's because they haven't received TFAP in the same day. But the new pantry will say ineligible, which means they've already visited in the month. It is never going to be the case that they get TFAP and not purchase food. It's either everything or just purchase food. So if the new pantry is ineligible, they are not eligible to come back and shop until the following month. And then you can always double check that by coming over here to this last visit to agency off to the side. And that just lets you know the last time they came. So you can be like, by the way, it says that you came on June 1st. Unfortunately, our rule is you can only visit once a month. So you're able to come back in July if you would like to come shop. And then when that does happen, we can hand them one of these Plentiful flyers. Plentiful is a really cool app. You just download it and then allow it to share your location, and then it will pop up with food pantries in the area and as well as their times that they're open. So they're able to see other food pantries that are nearby. We've decided to use this. We used to have like a big packet of pantries that are just like in our little coalition that we're in. But this is a little bit more useful because it's a little bit more up to date and it has food pantries that aren't listed on the Food Bank of the Rockies website or are part of our coalition. So it even has like the little small church pantries on it, many of whom may not be affiliated with Food Bank of the Rockies. So we want to go ahead and use this app. It's really cool. Next time you're in the pantry, feel free to look it up and kind of see what it's all about. But yes, do we have questions on the TFAP versus pantry? Okay, I'll go ahead and move on. Okay, so I'm gonna go. Okay, so I am going to go back over to dashboard. So the next thing I want to talk about is diapers. So we did get a diaper delivery in last week. So I always like to kind of review diapers whenever we get that delivery in. So just a reminder, I really, really want the tablet volunteer to be the only one handing out diapers. So sometimes, a lot of times you all are really good about checking the family size and if they're eligible for diapers within when you're scanning the card initially. But every now and again, someone will get past you, and they'll go all the way through shopping and they're like, oh, wait, I need diapers. So when that happens, I've seen a lot of you kind of just scrolling through the list trying to remember who that person is to see if they're eligible for diapers. There's a much easier way to do that. So if they have already shopped, you can just ask for their card again, scan it, It has to be in the right thing. So I'm going to scan it again. And then it's going to bring you to this page, letting you know that they've already shopped that day. But in this household summary right here, you can see their kids' ages. So you can go in and do that instead of trying to scroll and remember who that person was. It's a little bit easier. And then, so I always want y'all to confirm eligibility before handing out diapers, either letting the resource navigator tell you that they need diapers or double checking for yourself. And then they're eligible if they have kids that are 6 and younger. You always want to ask how many of their kids need diapers. So, for example, they may have like a 3 and a 1 year old, and maybe only the 1 year old needs diapers. So, in that case, they would only get one pack of diapers. Versus maybe they have two twins that are one. In that case, they'll get two diapers. Um, but you always want to ask if which of their kids need diapers. And then in addition, right now we have wipes. So they get one pack of diapers per kid, but one pack of wipes per family. So just because they have two kids who need diapers doesn't mean they get two things of wipes. They only get one thing of wipe. We have way fewer wipes than we do diapers, so we want to make sure that those wipes last a long time. And then we always have families who are asking for wipes but don't want diapers. They're not allowed to have wipes unless they're also getting diapers. And then same for diapers. If they want to receive diapers, they have to go through and shop. They can't just come in, get diapers, and then not shop. We're not a diaper pantry, we're a food pantry. Diapers are just a nice little extra thing that we're able to give out. Um, so just to reiterate, they only get diapers if they're shopping and only get wipes if they are getting diapers. And we did hide the wipes down below because we had some families getting upset that they weren't allowed to get wipes when they weren't getting diapers. So we hid them so they're not in view anymore.
Then another note, there's another little quarter flyer called Marisol Families. That is another way people can get more wipes and diapers and also other baby items. So make sure you also give them a copy of those so they know where else to go, especially this year where we got much less amount of both. I think it's good. We should hand them out to everybody.
So the next thing I want to chat about.
Oh, quick question, Tara, before we move on.
Yeah.
Jessica asked if they are 6 years old, they get diapers. I thought it was 5 and under.
I mean, we can revisit that. So previously, our previous program director did a little bit of research on the weight, requirements for diapers, and apparently some of the diapers that we have could potentially be used for 6 year olds. So she made it so, it was 6 and younger.
So we will keep it 6 and younger, if that's correct.
But it is pretty rare that we see a 6 year old who needs diapers. Usually it's like the 3 and unders. And then also if you see a family who has a 6 year old but they want size 1 diapers, go ahead and ask them if they have an additional baby. So if a family doesn't have the baby listed in the account, go ahead and send them over to a navigator to get that kid listed because that way they can get diapers and we can have the most accurate list of people on their account. And then it's also to their benefit that they get all of their family members onto the account because that means they can potentially get more food. Okay, so next thing I wanted to talk about is what to do if there is no navigator. So this doesn't happen super duper often. So we currently have 3 staff members who are bilingual and we're working to hire a fourth. So it's not super duper often that we don't have a navigator. Sometimes the internet's more likely to go out than not have a navigator. But this little chart is listed behind the tablet for a little cheat sheet. So when there's no navigator, like the internet's out, we'll follow this guideline. This short form is going to be for online registration if the card doesn't scan, if they forgot or lost their card, or potentially anonymous visits. So this is considered the online registration, and we want to make sure that we are writing down the client ID and the card number when it's available. Um, So if we don't, and we also need to make sure it's completely filled out. If it's not completely filled out, we'll have a really hard time figuring out which of the 200 Maria Garcias filled out this. So it does need to be filled out completely when there's no navigator. And then the card number, if they have the card, it's listed right there. And then a lot of times the client ID is going to be listed on this second row where it says example. Of course, if they forgot or lost their card, you won't be able to do that. But if it's not scanning or an online registration, you will be able to do that. And then the online registration, there's a little number that says client ID. I'm not able to pull that up right now. Um, and then if you'll do a large intake if we really need to like kind of go through their account. So link to feed will not allow us to bypass anything if they have a profile review or missing information. So if that's happening, we really need them to fill out the large sheet to make sure that we are updating their information appropriately. And again, we have the client ID and the card number listed at the top that you can put in. Again, we need this completely filled out. And then if you, for some reason, need to look up the profile or the client ID number on this page. So again, you get to this page by clicking on the link, or maybe it'll automatically bring you. This number in the corner is their client ID. And then you can also find it. So when you're on this page, when you're seeing the client down here, there's a number over here that's also the client ID. So there's many ways to find the client ID unless they physically don't have the card with them. Or if they're filling this out for the first time, you might not be able to see what the client ID will be. And then yes, you want to make sure that everything is legible because if you can't read it, we can't read it when we're filling it. Any questions on that? Okay. I'm gonna move on. Miriam, let me know if anything pops up in the chat. So next
Yeah,
I
there's something there.
There was someone asked, did you say what an anonymous visit is?
So an anonymous visit will happen if someone absolutely does not want to fill out paperwork, or if they come in really, really late and the navigator is not able to kind of process them. So if they're brand new, come in very last second and like the navigator doesn't have time to process them, then we'll just do an anonymous visit. But usually allow staff to determine if someone's allowed to do an anonymous visit or not. So anytime anyone asks about that or anytime that might come up, just make sure you grab a staff member.
Yes, and then there the other situations that a person can be anonymous is if they are homeless and don't have any ID with them, don't have any phone number, they are just on the street. We'll probably do an anonymous visit so they can just get food at that moment. Or if someone is very hesitant to put information into Link to Feed and just completely says, no, I don't want to, that's okay. We can put it in on, that rarely happens. I've never had that happen to me yet. But if there is a case, we send them to the resource navigator and they would and submit them as anonymous visit.
But again, allow staff to determine that.
Mhm. And then the question follow-up is asked, do they get TFAP also? Yes.
So moving on. So I know that you all absolutely love when we have a navigator who can help you with translations. However, we do want you all to be pretty comfortable using our translation tools that we have provided you. So the number one thing, I have like this little stack of cue cards that I made. These cue cards are really helpful because they give a little bit more information than the Excel spreadsheet I sent like a year ago. So these are a little bit more informative for the person. And it even has the no navigator things in it. So I have the explanations for why they need to fill out a short form, why they need to fill out a long form. And then if they do ask for a card, there's going to be your explanation. So if there's no navigator, we're not going to be able to give them a card that day. Um, so this will just let them know to ask next time to go get a card. Um, so these are really helpful. These are kind of like a shortcut. So like some of our like other translating tools, they have like shortcut tools, but this is a little bit more specific to what we're doing and a little bit faster. You just have to kind of thumb through it to find what you're looking for. I even have the rare occasion where we don't have meat. There's like a no meat, what to say when that happens. So most of the things that you'll need to say are in here. But if you do want to have a conversation back and forth, we do have this little pocket translator that's on the desk. I've been keeping it in the little bucket, but it's usually somewhere on the desk. So on here, the blue is the person who is talking, and then you can easily click. Oh, did it wrong. Okay, and then you can like easily like click to like change, maybe if it wants to work.
When
Oh,
you
you
click
have
the
to
blue
click the
arrow,
arrow. You have to click
yeah,
the arrow to switch it. Um, and then for this one, you have to hold the button down when you're talking. Hello, my name is Tara.
Hola, mi nombre es Tara.
Yeah, and then it talks to you, and then you can hit the little back button and then switch the language so that they can talk back to you. And then if they don't speak Spanish, there's this little like box thing in the corner, or no.
that's the menu. You click
Oh
on
yeah.
the
So you
language
click
to
on the
change
language to
language.
change the
Hmm.
language. So if you have like an Arabic or Vietnamese person, you can change the language and still communicate with them. And then this is something the navigators will also use if someone doesn't speak English or Spanish. Another option is Google Translate. So on the Pocket Translator, you hold the button down, where on Google Translate, you just click the button and talk. And then on Google Translate, you can change the different languages and hit this button in the middle to switch who is talking. So this one is I'm speaking English, but if I wanted to have the person speak back to me, they can switch it to Spanish. And then again, you just press the button. Hello, my name is Tara. And then it will have it written there, and then you can also hit the little sound button to have it talk to you if needed. And then you can hit the back button to reset it and change the language for having them talk. Um, Google Language or Google Translate does have a conversation tool. I find that's harder to use because it goes a lot faster than people naturally talk when they're trying to figure out translation tools. So like I'll still be talking and then it will like switch to Spanish halfway through. So I recommend just using the basic Google Translate function. Miriam, do you have anything else to say about translations?
Nothing they covered at all. We are, as always, want to be helpful, but sometimes we're in the middle of conversation, so really try to use all these different tools to get by. I think Tara's done a fantastic job of doing the cue cards. You know, you can just give it to the person and point, and they can read it to themselves. So thank you, Tara, for doing that work. And then Jessica just reminded that sometimes a translator doesn't have battery, so just to remember to, you know, it's the same charger as the one we use for the tablet. So just stick it in, you know, even if we're not maybe during the shift, you know, just check it out, see if it has battery and just plug it in just to make sure it's available. Thanks, Jessica.
Um, any other questions? We have about 3 minutes before Zoom is going to kick us out. So do we have any more questions before we close out today? Okay, I don't see anyone trying to unmute or type. So if you have any additional questions, send me an email, chat with me next time you see me. I will send out the little document I made, and I'll get this into a format where we can review it if needed. So I'll send out the video link too. Um, but yeah, thank you all again for joining us today. I hope it was informative and helpful. And then continue to ask staff if you need assistance at the tablet. We're here for you.
Okay, thank you. That was great.
Thank you. And with that, I will close out. Thank you, everyone.